Hey everyone, it's Josh, and welcome to Cyber-Conversations. Today we're picking up where our conversation left off on our discussion of Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This is part two of our conversation. There will be three total. And if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments with questions, things that you want to say. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And if you like the show, please feel free to tell everyone that you can think of, anyone that you think might enjoy the show and its format. Um, Now is the time to go out and tell people all about us. And I won't say anything else. I want to get right into the conversation, but I hope you enjoy it and welcome. So going back to Return of the Jedi, I'm really bad at that. Staying on topic. Um, well,
So
that
let's
was my
start in
take.
Tatooine because that's where the movie begins. We start in the nostalgia of the first 5 minutes, where the camera drops out of space after the crawl, and what do we see? The vast arc of a planet, and and
And actually,
there's
one of the things I don't like about the movie.
and the new Death Star is in the shot, so it's like right off the bat, it's like, okay, the Empire's still kicking butt,
It
like
is a
the
beautiful
rebels are
shot.
still against it.
It,
But there's also, even though it's not a there is a Star Destroyer in the shot.
yeah.
But it really is an homage to the first movie. You know, we have to understand that even in 1984 or whatever, there was a nostalgia for the movie at that point that
Hmm.
had come out several years earlier than that. So nostalgia there, and then the next thing we know, our droids are walking in the desert, and we instantly identify it as Tatooine. So there's also nostalgia there. So right off the bat, you're plugging away on the nostalgia, and resurrecting, the original movie,
Yeah,
which is fun, and it's a
but
good way to open the story.
it does also bring up one of the other reasons why I don't like Return of the Jedi nearly as much. And I've talked about this a little bit before. I won't take a lot of time with this, but I talked a little bit before about the fact that Gary Kurtz used to disagree with George Lucas and they would butt heads. And that's why we got, I believe, some of the great openings in the first two movies. I still think that A New Hope has one of the greatest openings of all time because you learn everything there is to know without a single word of dialogue from the opening shot with the Star Destroyer chasing Tantive 4. With Return of the Jedi, we have none of that. There's a flat shot, meaning not even a low angle or anything to really distinctly say what's powerful, what isn't. It's just a planet. You see a Star Destroyer, and then the shuttle comes out, and we have this really long sequence of the shuttle docking with nothing. Then it's followed by a good scene with Darth Vader landing on the Death Star. But that shot of the shuttle is nowhere near what I was hoping to
Well,
see, considering how
wait a
good the
minute.
first two were.
You didn't notice that there was a mostly constructed new Death Star in
No,
the
no.
shot?
As I
That is
said,
massive.
no,
That is the point of the whole scene.
no,
You didn't
as
even
I
mention it.
No, as I said, it is a gorgeous shot, and I do enjoy seeing the Star Destroyer. But the shots of the shuttle are these long, drawn out shots that aren't even that impressive. They're just flat angled shots that don't really convey anything other than shuttle moves from A to B. It's
That's like saying, the TIE fighter Falcon battle in the first movie was really boring. It was just a bunch of shots of Han and Luke just sitting in their chair. I
no.
mean, seriously, that's all it was just them sitting in their chair. Did you not notice what was going on outside the window? Did you not use your brain to like put the different shots together so that you could perceive that they weren't just sitting in their chair, they were throwing bolts of energy out into space and destroying the threat that was swarming them? There was a lot going on in the frame. When you talk about how boring the shuttle
I didn't say it's boring.
shots were,
I didn't say it's boring
um,
because it's not long enough to be boring, but there's nothing to stand out. Like,
There
and
is, though. There
I
is. In the
saw the,
theater, everybody is gasping. You got to be kidding me. They built another one. Luke blew that up. They built another one. They're not even looking at the shuttle hardly. The shock is all coming from the new Death Star.
but they don't even show any great shots. Like the Death Star is even shown at a flat angle. You see it from a distance. They should have there
It's a
anything.
sphere. How do you show a sphere at a flat angle?
Just well, I just mean having something to show how massive it is. They don't do that. We only know it's massive because the first Death Star was massive.
We don't need to know how massive it is. We know very well how massive it is.
But
In fact, we could entertain the idea that it is now more massive than before, maybe, but which we do find out later is true. But it doesn't matter. You know, this massive space station is being rebuilt. My God, you can throw a bomb on this thing and blow it and everything in it up, and they'll just start laying foundation for another one?
but my
Or
point,
was it possible that the Empire was building two? Did they want a whole fleet of Death Stars? I mean, these guys are
I
evil.
mean, presumably,
Those are the thoughts
I mean,
that are going on
presumably
in
they
this scene.
were. But my point is that comparing the openings, I didn't think it was impressive in Return of the Jedi.
Hmm.
This is something that we can agree to disagree on, but I
What
wasn't
was the
impressed.
opening shot? Oh, the opening shot
The
in
Empire Strikes
Empire
Back
was
is
was
the underside
the
of the
probe
Star
droids.
Destroyer and seeing the
Right.
probes go in a million different
Yeah, and
directions.
that's also cool that it was space and it's like, okay, there's a Star Destroyer. You're not, labeling it or anything like that. We know what a Star Destroyer is. It's the same thing. And then there's these things dropping out and they're just like
Yeah,
they're
you
blasting
see them
off in
going
different
off
directions.
into
You don't know
all
why.
these.
You don't know
Well, you
why.
do know
You don't know
why
what
because
they are.
the opening crawl told you. You do know why, and you see
Oh no,
them
it said that it dispatched probe droids. You don't know what
thousands
probe
of
droids
probe.
are. You don't know what
Well,
they look like. You don't know
well,
what they look like. You don't know what these little balls coming out the bottom of the Star Destroyer are. I mean, it's visually kind of boring,
okay, I'll
but
give
the
you this point.
concept that's going on.
I'll give you this point. Maybe you didn't know what they were, but even as a kid, when I saw them, my mind was saying the last thing they said is the Empire has
Well,
dispatched thousands of probe droids across the galaxy, and then we
okay,
see a bunch
all
of
right.
these points of light going in 500 different directions. That was that to me. That those were the probe droids.
Okay, fair enough, Josh. There was never a moment where I saw the Empire where I didn't see exactly the same thing. But that is the counterpoint I'm making, is that the very thing that you're saying about Return of the Jedi is as ridiculous sounding to me as what I am saying to you about nobody knowing what the probe droids are. It's like you're talking about the Tidarium shuttle, the Star Destroyer. You're talking about Tie Fighter escorts. You're talking about a brand new Death Star. We know exactly what it is. We know exactly what kind of threat it is. Everything in the scene is absolutely explainable on day one. You need no context for any of it. It's all incredibly impressive visually and emotionally, because every single scene in the opening scene, every single element in the opening scene of Return of the Jedi is emotionally impactful and doesn't need explanation. So the argument that you're making that this big triangle ship and this unknown shuttle and it's like just like passing through the screen and nothing's going on, like none of that makes sense. It makes about as much sense as here's a Star Destroyer and it's dropping a bunch of probe droids into space and they're all going different directions, but I'm not really sure what they are. And there's not a lot going on. I didn't even see a planet. It's just
I don't
a
know.
Star Destroyer.
I don't know. For me, it felt more impactful, and that's the only thing I
Oh,
can say.
so
Again,
that
this is the point of
therein,
view, and once again, I want to reiterate,
true,
this isn't
but
something that should be that I'm saying you're right or you're wrong and I'm wrong and I'm right or anything like that. And I have no problem with people who love the opening to Return of the Jedi, but this is what I didn't like
but
was
but I
that
did open up the conversation talking about how we should understand why we believe what we believe, and so I challenge you, like, why is one of those things which is equal in almost every way to the other thing? Why did one of them emotionally impact you one way and the other one emotionally impact you the other way? And can you at all blame anyone for not having the same emotional impact because they don't have your emotions? And maybe life
I
sucked
well
when
I
Return of the Jedi came out, and life was great when Empire Strikes Back came out. So you walked in, you saw this thing, and it was amazing because everything in your life was amazing. And then you walked into this other scene, but your life sucked at the moment, and nothing looked amazing, and it made a permanent emotional brand on you. That's something that's unique
it is
to not just
possible,
you, but
but
to anybody.
I'm not saying that anyone else agrees with me. Maybe no one does. maybe this is just me, but this was the feeling that I got from it. And that's why I'm
Understood.
saying, like, I'm not sure if anyone feels it, but I do feel like I was impressed watching all those probe droids go in so many different directions at the same time, but I wasn't impressed with watching a shuttle go from point A to point B. I was impressed by the fact that there's another Death Star, but I had already been told that there was another Death Star by the opening crawl. So seeing it in all its glory was great, but it didn't have the effect on me that the opening of the other two movies had.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I
Well,
really can say. Like
so
that,
right
that,
off the bat, like it just seems like your opinion about Jedi is sharply guided by an emotional imprint that you have on the movie, which brings me to a curiosity about 1983, 1984, like what was going on in your life, because we didn't meet until
oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we wouldn't
10
meet.
years later or
Yeah.
something. So,
Well, a
like,
little
I
less
wonder
than
what was
that, but
going on
yeah.
in your life that left you with these negative emotional impressions of this movie.
I don't
Like,
remember it being a particularly bad time in my life, but then again,
hmm.
I'm old enough that I don't remember that part of my life all that well.
Well, again, I also want to state that I'm not trying to invalidate your opinion. I'm not be like I'm not trying to say, oh well, it looks like you got scarred by something, and so you're not thinking straight. I'm not saying that. It is your opinion and it is valid. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of like the comparative emotional impressions you have about
I
the scene. That's
understand
all.
that. I just like I don't know. I mean,
So then we go down to Tatooine. Tatooine
Tatooine.
is also nostalgic
I
because
did
we haven't
love
been
that.
back to Tatooine since the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's like immediately that it's Tatooine. I love the I love this is what I mean by the little things in the background. I love the shot when it shows Jabba's palace and you kind of don't know it's Jabba's palace necessarily. You will in a minute, but there's a big frog creature that eats another smaller
Well,
creature,
that
and
was a little later on,
it's
but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
that shot it always
And
I
then
always
it
thought it
and
was
then it
cool because it's like
belches.
you don't know what those are, you don't know what was going on there. It just brought the wilderness of Tatooine alive, and it reminded you that it was an alien planet.
Yeah. Plus, as you had said, like in the form of nostalgia, he also George Lucas got to go wild with the alien creatures again, and we got a whole bunch of them in Jabba's palace. All sorts of new
Oh
things.
yeah,
We got our
yeah,
first
another
look at
cantina.
Gamorrean guards, the
Yeah,
pig-like things. We saw that spider-looking droid for about 2 seconds. We never really got to find out anything about it other than it's a creepy spider-looking droid. Um, we saw I don't what are they called with the three eyes, and I think the character's name was Reese.
oh is
What are
that
they called? Um,
Malastare,
is
Malastarians?
that them? Yeah, maybe. I can't believe I forgot. But we saw some.
I don't think any of us claim to be Star Wars experts. It's just an encyclopedic thing to get it, to be into. So
But we do get to see all of these different creatures mingling, just partying in front of Jabba. There's music again, just
they're
like
grand.
on the cantina, in the cantina in Mos Eisley. It's nostalgic, and of course, as a kid, I definitely loved um, what was his name, Salacious Crumb,
Yeah,
the
love
Kowakian
Salacious
monkey
Crumb.
lizard because of the laugh.
Kowakian monkey lizard.
Yep, I wish
Yeah.
I could do that
The
laugh.
three-eyed guys are from Malastare. I believe they're from Malastare, but they're
Yeah,
Gron.
Gron. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Um, I know I had an action figure of them or of him. Um,
A lot of imagination, a lot of artificial life, a lot of possibilities. Just this, injecting us culturally with this idea that the universe is full of possibilities
yeah.
and
Well,
and
also we got Max
you know
Rebo, the little or blue
yeah,
elephant dude, and we
Blue
got
Elephant, who
Cy
has who
Snoodles.
has whose race has made a great comeback in Skeleton Crew.
Isn't that the
It's the
same?
first time we've seen.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. It feels like they are. It feels like Max Rebo is in the same species as
yeah. No, I
as
mean,
the
no, it
the
wasn't
elephant
Max
people.
Rebo. Didn't he make a return also in something
Oh
recently?
yeah, he did. Was it Mandalorian? I did. We did actually see him again. I thought that was a
Was
great
it Mandalorian or was
nostalgic.
it? I can't remember.
It had to be something. It had to be something before the Sarlacc pit, right? Because he dies in the explosion with the skiff.
Presumably, yeah.
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah,
I think whatever it was, it could have been Obi-Wan. It was either, I think it was either Obi-Wan or Mandalorian. I don't
yeah,
remember. One of your listeners will probably say, but I do remember seeing him, and it
yeah.
could have been,
It could have been
it was
another one
Max
of the
Rebo,
same
wasn't it?
species, but I think they
No,
did
didn't
say
they
it
mention
was.
it? Wasn't it mentioned?
Yeah, I think
I can't
so.
remember.
Either
Yeah.
either on camera or off camera, someone said, "Yeah, that is indeed Max Rebo." Cy Snoodles, who I was always fascinated by the character design, even before
Yeah.
the special editions when it was just puppetry and
Yeah, the puppeteering with the strings on the lips and stuff,
yeah,
it like all of that was invisible in the first movie, but it was a pretty masterful, inventive bit of puppeteering.
yeah. And I do like the special edition where they
I do
CG'd
too.
where you can
I
see the
do too.
lips and all that. It's really
They
cool.
make a full performance out of it, which you could argue whether or not that kind of stalls out the scene a little bit. It's not really necessary, but it is a quirky alien sort of Star Warsy moment to just see
Yeah,
that imagination on stage. But it also kind of like pauses the flow of the story for a moment. And I personally like it. I love the fact that Lucas was able to come back and sort of flesh that band out the way he originally imagined it.
yeah. And I can't remember now because it's been a long time, but I think there was a documentary where they're talking about it, and someone was like, "Well, George Lucas decided he wanted to have a musical number, so we put it in." And that's just kind of how I see the whole thing. It's like George Lucas was like, "You know what we need here? We need a musical number." Okay, let's throw one together, guys. Obviously, they didn't just throw it together. George Lucas created a lot of those creatures, and it was just really cool. And of course, everyone got happy because we saw Boba Fett too. Um, although, not for
So for the
nothing.
record, Neil in Skeleton Crew his species is different than Max Rebo's species. Max
Oh,
Rebo is an Ortolan,
Ortolan. Yeah, yeah.
and Neil is not.
Ortolan. I
So
don't know.
I'm not going to think they're the same anymore. That is got me
Well, we knew
corrected.
that they weren't the same person, but yeah,
No, I meant the same
same
species. I thought
species.
it was maybe
Okay.
possible.
Yeah,
So the Star Wars galaxy has two elephant-like humanoids.
yeah. It's good to know. Um,
Good to know.
I still, well, never, I'm going to get off topic. What else was I going to say? Well, there's not much else to say except that I know that everyone got really happy to see Boba Fett, and I still, for the life of me, don't understand why everyone loved him before the prequels came out. And I just don't know. I mean, I liked him. I thought he was cool looking, but before the prequels came out, I was like, he didn't like. He shows up for a couple of scenes in The Empire Strikes Back. He does track down Han, but he doesn't really do anything other than that. He shoots at Luke a couple of times, and then he shows up in Return of the Jedi, and everyone cheered, and I was like, why? Uh, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the character because he is a cool character, especially with more of the backstory fleshed out. But I do remember how happy everyone was to see Boba Fett. So
People love their Boba Fett, man.
yeah,
That is for sure. I'm definitely not going to take that away from him. I'm also not going to say that, Boba Fett is not a great character. I think that Boba Fett is really not a character. I think Boba Fett is a suit of armor. And I think that the suit of armor is so badass that people fell in love with the character because they love that suit of armor.
yeah,
I think that we were sold the bill of goods that Han Solo was one of the biggest badasses in the galaxy, and then Boba took him down.
yeah,
And so without any significance in the backstory or anything like that, just the fact that this guy has a badass armored suit and he was able to take down Han Solo of all people, he must be somebody to deal with. I I
maybe that's what it
I he
was. But
he's not one of my favorite characters. I don't really see him as a character. And besides, even like I will even say this when it comes to Darth Vader, it is against my nature to admire evil characters. And Boba is a mercenary. I suppose if you really need his help, he can help you. But he's basically an evil character. He's a bad guy. He's introduced as a bad guy. You can go into his backstory and you can watch that one time when he helped an old lady cross the road. But he grabbed Han Solo and took him to Jabba the Hutt and got paid for it. He's
yeah,
a bad guy. So I'm not going to admire him. But But
Although
it
I will
does
say,
sort of puzzle me a little bit, like how he got to be so popular.
yeah, and not to change the subject, we're not going to talk about it today, but I did like some of the stuff they did with the Book of Boba Fett, and when he appeared in The Mandalorian
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Oh, I love that show. Yeah, I loved everything about that show.
Yeah.
Everything.
So,
Yeah.
so he does have, some growth as a character eventually, but
Yeah,
in
but
but in
by
these
Book
two
of Boba
movies,
Fett, he is an actual character. You know,
yeah,
he's got a face, he's got a voice, he's got dialogue, he's got goals, he's got a mission, he's got weaknesses. You know,
yeah.
that's what makes a
But when
character.
Return of the Jedi came out, he didn't have any of those things, and so at the time, at least, I didn't understand why everyone loved him. Although you do make a good point. Maybe everyone loved
Yeah,
him
I
because,
sympathize.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I sympathize. I really do. Like, I don't really get it either. He's cool, but like, what? How did? Why? What's with the screaming?
yeah. Um, But then we got, let's see, we got the kick-ass fight on Jabba's. Oh, well, first we got the kick-ass fight between Luke and the Rancor.
Okay, finally got a raw compliment out of Josh for Return of the Jedi. So it was a kick-ass fight at the skiff, right? In this fight, when Luke does not distinguish himself as a hero, does nothing extraordinary, and gets no credit for the bust out because his friends helped him. This is a kick-ass fight.
I
We can
enjoyed the
agree on
fight.
that.
I did enjoy the fight. I never said I didn't. I just didn't feel like it was a huge heroic thing at least not enough to justify why people couldn't see him, like why people would see him as nothing but this legendary hero who would go on to do all the
Sure.
stuff that he did in those
He
books.
was already a legendary hero. We already established that.
He was a
There's
legendary
nothing you can
hero,
do to
but then
take away the fact that he was a legendary hero before he arrived at the Sarlacc pit.
yeah, but what I mean is the stuff that he did in the Legends books, where he founds this whole
And
Jedi Academy and
none of
becomes
that's
the
canon.
Grand Master. Yeah, none of it's canon, but I never
Yeah,
understood
I don't
why
pay attention to any of that.
but I never understood why people are so attached to it because of what Luke does at Jabba's palace. I didn't feel it was justified, but that's neither here nor
Well,
there.
I think that so no, there is a point to be laid there, and that is we have to keep in mind that everything that Luke was in the first and second movie is what we know of Luke, and so what we know of Luke, being the guy who got his hand chopped off, being the guy that wasn't able to save his friends, being the guy that Yoda punked and said he wasn't even going to train him, being the guy that once Yoda just relinquished the training, still told him to do something and Luke wouldn't do it and screwed everything up as a result of his disobedience. Luke, who got punked in the snow and then got stuffed into the guts of a camel and then barely survived floating in a barrel full of water in his diaper. This is the Luke that we now see walk in with a black robe, totally confident, in charge, reading people's minds, affecting people's thoughts like Obi-Wan did, um, controlling the hearts of the Gamorrean guards. Like right off the bat, this dude is in command. And it's like, so no, he's not Superman. No, he's not Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, you know, in their prime. No, he's not Mace Windu. No, he's not Yoda. He is the scruffy-haired whiner that we watched barely survive the first two movies. And now he's in charge. And he seems to be carrying himself like a Jedi, but is he? Is this what a Jedi is? We're so spoiled. We're saturated with Jedi. When Return of the Jedi came out, nobody really knew what a Jedi was. We got this little nostalgic, misty remembrance moment with Obi-Wan when we first met him. But frankly, all we knew about the Jedi is this old man.
Yeah,
This old man in a weird brown robe that barely is able to have a sword fight with Darth Vader. And so, what is a Jedi? Like, we don't have any expectations. All we know is this scruffy dude that seems to have some magic calling on his life, that did one epic, impossible action that made him a legend, and then screwed everything up after that, basically. This guy is now looking like someone who is a superhero. I mean, we haven't really seen any superheroes in this universe except maybe Darth Vader, and and when he starts flipping around and you know when he you know the whole coordinated thing with R2 shooting his lightsaber out and stuff, he breaks that lightsaber out and it's green. we're so spoiled, Josh. We have to remember we've seen every color of the rainbow. There is no such thing as a green lightsaber. When Return of the Jedi comes out, all we've ever seen is a blue and a red lightsaber.
Hmm.
Whoa, he's got a green lightsaber. That seems stupid to us, but it would have been thrilling to the people that watched the movies at the time. You were one of them.
Yeah, and I don't remember having a reaction to it. I hate to admit that. Um,
Yeah, that's weird, and because I remember the cheer going up when he ignites that green lightsaber. It was revolutionary. There's not supposed to be any green lightsaber. This is something new. Not he must have built that. I think that's the reason why Luke changed the color, because the reasoning in your head while you're trying to comprehend the thrill of the moment is that Luke built a lightsaber. These are like magic legendary weapons. We weren't even sure where they came from. They're just like passed down from generation to generation. He built this thing from scratch. So there's another piece of evidence that he may actually be this legendary space wizard that we know as Jedi. But we weren't really exposed to what Jedi were at the time. So Luke is sort of defining it as it goes.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad admitting it. I don't remember having a reaction at all to seeing a green
Hmm.
lightsaber. I do know that Luke built it because they say it in the movie, but I don't remember. Maybe I just wasn't attentive enough. I have no idea, but I don't
Yeah,
remember
well,
having a reaction to it.
yeah, I maintain in all fairness that maybe things were going on in your life at the time that you don't remember that just really kind of soured the experience, you
I don't
know.
know. I do
It
remember that I
it's
was
possible.
happy, like when I saw the lightsaber, because it was a lightsaber, and I always liked lightsabers. I mean, who doesn't? They're light swords. So seeing it the first time, I was happy, but I didn't make note of the color. I was just happy that there was a lightsaber and someone was about to start swinging it. But I do like the fight on the skiff. Um,
Yeah, it's great. And let's face it, it is impossible to fail to make the point that John Williams' score is a big part of the reason why that fight on the skiff is so great.
I do love. I mean, I've always said I love John Williams. I still think that The Empire Strikes Back, his the music that he created for The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of the Star Wars movies, like the original themes. The themes that he added for Return of the Jedi, they were good, but I don't think they weren't even close to as memorable. The Ewok theme and the Han and Leia theme that he developed for the movies um, didn't hit me very much. Like I thought they were okay, especially the March of the Ewoks. I was kind of like, it's all right. Um,
I love the soundtrack. I actually, as far as soundtracks go, and I pay very close attention to the soundtrack.
oh, me too.
I do not have a favorite between the three. I think I like them all equally. I think they all like grew organically and played off each other, and now kind of make a trilogy of themes that drive the entire narrative of the story.
I don't know if you remember, but because it was a little bit before I knew you, but I had told you about it. When I was growing up as a kid, I was the odd one who I wasn't into popular music at all, and all of my records and tapes, because that's what we had at the time, were LPs and cassette tapes. All of them were soundtracks. I loved soundtracks from all sorts of movies, and that's part of why John Williams was like the ultimate for me. The Superman theme was my favorite of all time, but also the Indiana Jones theme. I mean, I'm not going to go into all of the themes that he did, but I loved all of them. And I had all of the soundtracks to the original trilogy back then. Um, and the first two movies were my favorites by a lot. Um, I will say, since we're talking about the skiff fight, I do love that victory theme that John Williams composed, which is played when the skiff is destroyed, and it's played again when the Death Star is destroyed in Return of the Jedi. I do love that victory theme. Um, but overall, I felt like the soundtrack wasn't his strongest. But that's just comparing it to
Well,
the other Star Wars movies.
I love the the skiff battle timing, because if you look, this is like it's like a micro movie in itself. If you look at the moment that Han and Luke are talking about how, you're gonna die here,
Hmm.
convenient. You look at that dark moment where it's like they're both surrounded by, monstrous dudes and weapons. They've been disarmed. They're cuffed.
Yeah,
They're being
they're in dire
taken to some
straits.
horrible, horrible, like unexplainable circumstance that,
Yeah,
the whole
they're about to
Sarlacc,
be
all we know is
digested over 1,000 years.
1,000 years, like, pass on that. So anyway, we what we have here is the darkest before the dawn moment that I was talking about
Hmm.
earlier, except, encapsulated in a scene instead of in a movie.
Yeah.
And then I don't know exactly what the timing is, but it's less than 5 minutes later. Luke is in his X-wing, everyone else is in the Falcon, and they're blasting off free into space with all the bad guys dead and left behind. And
Hmm.
it's like the absolute hopelessness of the moment going into the scene is so counterbalanced by the absolute victory of our heroes leaving the planet with no strings attached, with Han intact.
Yep.
Mission accomplished, no losses. 3PO didn't even lose a freaking finger. So
No, he lost an eye.
it's just a yeah, okay. He lost an eye. You're right. Yeah, touche. He did lose an eye. So, but other than 3PO's eye, it's just an absolute win for the good guys, and I think it's really thrilling to see that unfold so quickly, because that's kind of how a good movie goes, except it's compressed into less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And John Williams' score, really explains it, because the music is building while they go, and they use the magnets to pull the droids out of the sand,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then the spectacular, kudos to ILM for the pyrotechnics on that scene.
Oh yeah.
Spectacular explosion. That skiff is utterly destroyed. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it
sail
it, it is
barge and the skiff
the
in front of it, it's so cool. I love that
the
explosion.
pieces the pieces that blow up.
Yeah.
Everything is gone. So it's just an absolute victory. If anyone even survived that, they're obviously,
Stuck in the
hundreds of
middle of
miles or
nowhere.
whatever
Yeah.
from nowhere. So all the bad guys are gone and all the good guys are alive,
And
and it's
then we
foreshadowing.
transition. Yeah, and then
It's
we
foreshadowing.
transition to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which was the introduction of the Emperor. And part of it is because of John Williams' score, which brings back the Empire theme, the Imperial March that I love so much. Um, and the way it kind of builds upon itself. That march, he plays it once at the normal pitch, and then he raises it because it's like, okay, it's the Empire, but it's not just the Empire. This is the Emperor, and we're
Yeah.
about to get real, you know?
And we've heard about the Emperor. We've
Yeah, we
seen a
hadn't
giant
seen. Yeah, we'd
hologram of
seen a
his
hologram,
head.
and it wasn't even Ian. It was Clive Revell who portrayed
Yeah,
him in The
there's a
Empire
whole
Strikes
story
Back originally.
originally.
Yeah.
Actually, there is actually a blue screened in pair of chimpanzee eyes involved in that hologram
Yep.
as well. That's
Yeah.
not a rumor. That's true.
Yeah. So
So, but anyway, I think what Lucas was going for, which he succeeded in achieving, is that this creature, this person, if that's what it is, that's behind the empire, is monstrous,
hmm.
is misshapen, is, somehow, I'll just say it, demonic.
Yeah.
This is a demonic figure, that is not a normal guy that happened to ascend to power. This is somebody that is, twisted and misshapen and altogether evil.
But
And so when he arrives, and much much larger, I think that the Vader scene in the beginning is partially to establish the
yeah, the
what is it
Emperor is
called,
not
the
as forgiving as I am.
yeah, not just that, but if you look at the scene, if you look at the details in the background, which is what I do every single moment I'm watching Star Wars, I'm
Hmm.
studying the background. What is it called when you array all of the official, soldiers and equipment and stuff in front of your dictator? when you parade your resources.
I don't know what it's called. I've never
The
been military.
regalia. I'm going to
Yeah.
call it regalia. Vader shows up, and there is a bit of regalia on the deck, and it is an impressive display of a couple of squadrons and some contingent of leaders. But I think that it was partially done that way because when the Emperor shows up, there's like thousands of TIE fighters flying
Yep.
by in formation out the window. There are hundreds and hundreds of stormtroopers and more officers on the deck than there were stormtroopers greeting Vader.
Yep.
I mean, it is the whole place
Yeah.
rolled
And then
out to
and then
see
we
this
get to
guy come
see
in.
and then we get to see the red robed what
Yeah,
are they called?
yeah.
I guess the
What's
Emperor's
that all
Guard.
about?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, and they came out and they were not quite but almost as imposing as Vader.
Yeah, yeah.
And
He he had himself a gangsta entourage for sure, and it was impressive.
but let me ask you something. And this is maybe because now things are different. We've seen all the backstory, but at the time, I was, let's see, 1983. So I was 10 years old when the movie came out, and I did see it in the theater. Um, so when I saw The Emperor, I thought that what they had done with his face was not to like illustrate what we eventually found out were the lightning strikes from the Force lightning. I thought they were trying to show that he was like ancient, like 200 years old. Was that the
Yeah, I probably
impression you
got the
got?
same. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I think
okay.
so. I think I probably got a similar impression at the time, and I probably carried that impression through the '90s.
Yeah.
Until we were told otherwise.
Okay. I
Which
was a little
I
worried.
think well no I think that's probably absolutely true. I mean let's face it. I doubt Lucas at the time was realizing that he electrified himself with his own dark side
Yeah.
lightning
Yeah. I'm guessing he
bouncing
didn't
off of
know.
Mace Windu's lightsaber.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm guessing he didn't
So
know,
I
but I
think
don't know if that's what he was going for, was that he was going to say the Emperor was like, really, really ancient, or if he was
so I'll
just
say
trying to,
two things.
yeah.
Number one, I absolutely is trying to communicate the idea that he's ancient, and that gives us an even more intimidating idea of how long he's been building this ridiculous empire that's causing
Hmm.
so much pain and grief.
Yeah.
And then number two, I will say that the decision to accelerate that effect so that we instantly go from Ian McDermott to the Emperor in the
In
prequel movies
Revenge of the Sith.
is what was a good
Was
one. It was a
well, it was
believable
because
one. It
it was
wasn't too
kind of
much of a stretch.
necessary. They wanted to have
Right.
Ian
Right.
McDiarmid play Palpatine, and
And
that was
there
a
he
good
is.
decision because Ian is incomparable. I mean, he's done other stuff, but he knows full well this is what he's going to be remembered for.
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah, that
and
dude had evil down,
yeah,
evil behavior, evil nuance. He had it down.
yeah.
I'm not
Um,
sure I'd want that compliment. I'm not sure that's
for an actor, that's got to be
yeah,
great, I
I'm not sure I
suppose.
would
But I mean, like,
want
that's
that
one
on
of
my
the things that
resume.
I love when I see. I mean, not to change the topic too much, but one of the things that I love is when an actor who is normally a good guy breaks tight to be a bad guy, and they do that often because they want to see what it's like. It didn't work out. I mean, this is in my opinion. It didn't work out so well with Harrison Ford because he did What Lies Beneath, which was a movie that I just thought had no redeeming qualities. It was just not good at all. But if you go back before our time, yours and mine, the generation before ours, Harrison Ford, was Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda had these amazing blue eyes. Women would swoon at the sight of him, and he was always a good guy, like a really nice guy. I don't know if you like westerns, but I fell in love with westerns, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. I didn't grow up liking them, but around 20 years ago, I decided to start watching them because I heard they were good. And I watched Once Upon a Time in the West, which was a movie where Henry Fonda broke type and played not just a bad guy, but one of the worst types of bad guys ever, like a truly evil person. He did it really well. It worked really well, but I suspect he loved it because he always had to play the good guy. He always got to play the good guy. And now he got to be the most ornery, awful person. That's got to be.
Ornery. You really have gotten into westerns.
Oh yeah, he nailed it. It was so great watching him, especially because I've seen him in some of the other. Most of his movies were stuff that I wouldn't really watch. Like Cocoon is not the type of movie that's for me, and uh, On Golden. Wait, was he in Cocoon? Now I can't remember. I think he was. I know he was in On Golden Pond, and I don't think I've ever seen it, or if I did, I think maybe I saw it once.
I
Uh,
ironically have seen on Golden Pond. It is not the kind of movie I would normally watch.
yeah.
I just know I did get a chance to be exposed to it at some point, and I remember nothing about it.
Well, you've seen Henry Fonda then as a good guy. Um, but yeah, in Once Upon a Time in the West, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. That's the movie that got me into westerns, and it's
Hmm.
phenomenal.
I actually have heard that that is a good movie. I can't say I've ever seen it.
I'll loan it to you if you want. I love that movie. Um,
Do you have it on Fandango?
Actually, I don't. I have it on.
Hmm.
Oh boy, I'm gonna date myself. I have it on Blu-ray.
There's nothing to be embarrassed by, man. The whole conversation going on right now is about owning your own media, and
Yeah.
do we really want to get to a point where everything is streaming
Well, not for
content so that
nothing. I do buy a lot of stuff digitally now. I like the convenience of the digital stuff, but I'm old. I have stuff
if
that
you
I've
have a
had for
movie
years.
that you like and you own it on a physical piece of media,
Yep, it
I
can't go
envy that.
away.
I
Yeah.
envy that. I hardly have anything left on physical media.
All of the Avengers movies. I'm a huge fan of the MCU as well, and I have all of the Avengers Blu-rays. I even got the special uh, Infinity War Collector's Edition, a special box that contains the 23 movies leading up to Infinity War, from Iron
Nice.
Man all the way up to Spider-Man Far From Home. And actually, speaking of that, I'm just going to take a quick second to break away from the conversation to say uh, Vern has committed to helping me do this show for at least 9 episodes, where we're going to do Star Wars episodes 1 through 9. Um, After that, it's kind of up in the air because he is, as I said before, one of the busiest people I've ever seen, and he isn't sure he can commit to more time. So, what I was thinking of doing is possibly doing the same type of conversations about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, possibly including the other Marvel properties that aren't actually part of the MCU, like Wolverine or X-Men. So I wanted to know if any of the listeners are interested in being a part of that and having conversations like I have with Vern with me about the MCU. Please drop a note in the comments, and I'll see if I can, based on what we find out over the course of our recording, if I'm going to need to do the MCU or sooner or later, I'm definitely going to want to. I'll contact you. So leave a note if you are interested. Okay, so back to Star Wars. Um, where were we? Okay, so
So
the
the
Emperor is
Emperor
here, and then
lands.
did you want to talk more about the Emperor, or I was going to transition to
No, no, I
Yoda?
think we exhausted that. I think we exhausted that. I think
So then we get
we
the end of
get on to
Yoda.
Dagobah. Yeah, and the end of 900 years of good guyness. But
Yoda
we don't
is
have the
among,
advantage of knowing all the badass and sweet things that Yoda has done. All we know is what he has done with Luke. And
yeah,
he's given us some comical moments, but for the most part, we only see him as yet another mentor that Luke is losing. We don't really have a lot of context
yeah.
until, later movies and TV shows come out.
Yoda did end up becoming one of my favorite characters. Not my absolute favorite. Actually, as luck would have it, Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character. And that's something that 10-year-old me would never have guessed in a million years because he was such a side character in the original trilogy. I never knew that he was going to become this bigger than life hero, but he did. He is the ultimate hero to me.
Yeah, Yoda's a
That's a quick
pure
aside.
expression of what a servant of the Force is supposed to be.
Yeah.
He's a pure expression of it, with just with very little of his own character laid on top, other than the fact that he talks backwards.
So I do love Yoda. I love everything about the portrayal. And although The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of his portrayals, I still love the way they did the death scene in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we
part of
need
that
to
is
see all
due to
that.
Frank
Rest in
Oz.
peace.
I
Of
still
course.
and every time I hear his voice, I can't help but hear Fozzie in it a little bit, Fozzie Bear. But that's
Waka
just a me
waka
thing.
waka.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't it be great? Oh, and he could say that backwards. It would be Waka Waka Waka.
That would be weird.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound right. Hey, it's Josh. I just have to interject here. This is where I'm cutting it off for the second part of our conversation. The third part will be airing in 1 week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, if you haven't already, please click the like and subscribe buttons. Please feel free to leave comments, constructive criticism, any questions that you might have. As I said a few minutes before we ended, if you are interested in possibly co-hosting, if I do a series on the Marvel movies, which would be the Marvel Cinematic Universe specifically, but also including some of the side Marvel movies or other Marvel universes, leave a comment for that as well and let me know how to contact you. Again, part of that is going to be dependent on Vern's availability. Anyway, once again, I want to thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And I've been trying to come up with a good sign off for these videos, and so I'm kind of brainstorming uh, different closing words. So if you can think of anything good, let me know. But for now, I am taking a line from one of my favorite other YouTube channels, which is Dead Meat. I love watching their videos and their podcasts. I'm in no way affiliated with them, though wish I could be. They always finish their videos by saying, "Thanks everyone, be good people." I'm going to rip that off just a little bit and say, "Thanks everyone, make tomorrow even better than yesterday."